Hello, welcome to Radio Free Gastonia, the internet's only source, because we killed the other ones, for just barely good enough, passable historical content. I'm coming to you today. This is a little bit more of a personal situation. I'm getting to the age where I guess friends and family are going to be ill and infirm, and nobody loves that. But there's been some sad things happening, and I've been reflecting on that, and especially a really powerful moment that I want to talk about. But to set it up, I want to take you back to 1998. Those halcyon days where we didn't have anything to worry about. My great-grandmother was deathly ill in West Virginia. She seemed to be on her deathbed. And my venal great aunts and great uncles, which is to say my granddad's sisters and brothers, were in the hallway outside of grandmother's hospital room, fighting over who was going to get what. Just these little goblins trying to, before, there's not even a corpse yet, but they're like squabbling over this. And I truly believe that my great-grandmother, a truly great-grandmother, Tressie, I think she rallied. She overheard them and was just like, fuck this. I'm going to live longer because I don't want these people taking everything. And I don't know. She lived another 4 or 5 years, I think. She eventually passed when she was, I think, 98. Tressie was a tough old broad. And I have great admiration for flinty determination. Her husband had passed, decades before, but she was tough. And even though I've always thought that I would definitely die at a young age, I've just always had this premonition for some reason. There are some pretty hardy genes in here, I think on both sides of my family. So, these people are durable. My granddad is getting up there in the age too. Anyway, I was just thinking about that because, losing her was, it was a loss. She lived a good, long life, so it's not really tragic. But, any death is potentially, quite sad. The reason why I was thinking about it is because I had sent her like a birthday card toward close to the end of her life. And my granddad, her son, told me that they found the card that I'd sent her, and it was opened and it was on her bedside table, which made me feel great. Like, I'm glad the card got there in time before she was gone. I kind of think my granddad made this up just to make me feel better, but the odds that the card got there, probably 50-50. Who knows? But I wanted her to get it before she was gone. This is critical foreshadowing for what I'm going to talk about in a minute. So fast forward to, I want to say 2021. I'd been reading this really fascinating book by Dr. Julie Beth Napolin called The Fact of Resonance. It was published by Fordham University Press in June 2020. Trust me, I know how awesome it is to publish a book at the very beginning of the COVID pandemic. It is not good for your publicity. Anyway, but I had read the book, and it really struck me. I mean, it's very like theoretical, and it's like sound studies. It's kind of like comparative literature. It's all over the place. It's very philosophical. Not an easy read. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's a challenging read. And one of the things that Napolin talks about is how for something to resonate, it has to resonate with something else. Now, this might sound like a obvious or even banal observation, but when we think of the history of like Western philosophy, people like Descartes or Kant, it's very individualistic. It's the sensing, perceiving individual, and then the rest of the world, if the world even exists. Like we could all just be a brain in a vat, or it could be the Matrix or whatever. But it's always about the Western individualistic framework. And part of what I took from Napolin is that if there's sound, if there are vibrations, a bell rings, it rings through the air, the sound waves. They say in space, no one hear you scream or something, but like there's a kind of two-ness, TWO-NESS, two-ness. And I hope I'm not imputing anything to Napolin that she didn't intend, but it was just my impression. Everything has to resonate with something else. So if there's conversation, if there's sound, if there's music, if there's crying, if there's banging, if there's noise, one thing is vibrating in a medium, or the sound waves are connecting to something else. And this struck me as a very intriguing insight. And so I believe I was driving from Georgia to North Carolina in 2021. And I happened to listen to this song by the Carter family, the legendary sort of proto-country folk gospel group from the 30s, 40s that, June Carter Cash came from that family. True innovators, even though they sound like their music comes from 3,000 years ago, innovators in, the emerging genre of country music and folk music. Anchored in Love, or as I usually think of it, Anchored in Love Divine. It's a beautiful song. For copyright reasons, I won't include it here, even though it should not be a problem. But it's a Christian spiritual song, and that's not necessarily my bag, but it made an impression on me quite a bit. And so, just to give you a few of the lyrics, I found a sweet haven of sunshine at last, and Jesus abiding above. His dear arms around me are lovingly cast, and sweetly he tells his love. The tempest is over. The danger of that tempest forever is over. There's great harmonies, so these are like sort of vocal counterpoint and harmonies, but I'm safe evermore. My anchor is holding. I'm safe evermore. What gladness, what rapture is mine. The danger is past. The water is peaceful. The danger is past. I'm anchored at last. I'm feeling so happy. I'm anchored at last. I'm anchored in love divine. He saw me in danger and lovingly came to pilot my storm-beaten soul. Sweet peace he has spoken, and bless his dear name. The billows no longer roll. Now, this is, definitely a very familiar trope in Christian symbolism and art and music of seafaring, this tempest, the billowing. I'm finally in a safe harbor, an anchor. That's clearly like kind of a nautical reference, and we know many songs or stories that are based on, The Old Man and the Sea, Life of Pi, about being lost, and how scary being on the open sea or ocean can be, the existential threat that any seafaring person, especially in ancient times, or even now, would experience. You pray to God or Jesus or whoever, that get me through this tempest, get me through the storm. And then an anchor, it's something that holds you in place. that keeps you from being blown away, that keeps you from drifting, from getting lost. And so I thought, oh, this is a beautiful song. It's very lovely sentiment. But I was driving through northern Georgia, and when I was listening to this song, I think I'm not like a especially religious person, but I think I had what I would describe as a kind of mystical experience. One of the few in my life. I'm not trying to uh, push any ideology or convert anybody to anything, but just to say something transcendent. I was just driving on Interstate 85, listening to Anchored in Love Divine, and I was thinking about Napolin's book, Resonance. And I don't know, I felt something that was very numinous, and I don't know, actually. That's the nature of a sort of mystical experience, I guess, is its elusive kind of quality, unspeakable kind of quality. But I felt something very powerful, and I felt held, I felt protected, I felt anchored in love divine. And that didn't mean I became, a religious fanatic or like started going to church every week, but I recognized that I'd been going through a lot of turmoil in my life at the time, and feeling so confused and lost and hurt and angry, and not sure what the future would hold, not sure where I'm going, but feeling anchored in love divine. I felt like I was anchored in something powerful and protective. I don't know what you call that, but that's how I felt. So fast forwarding to now, or recently, my uncle is, I think any reasonable person would say, is on death's door. He's had an interesting life. I'm not going to disclose all kind of details or anything, but a working class white guy who served in the armed forces, and had some, had like some real career success, and sort of manufacturing type industries, but also had a lot of setbacks and unfair things that happened to him, and troubles. So it's not been an easy road, but he did carve out like a good life for him and his family. But his health has been bad for several years, quite a while now, actually. And I've worried when the day would come, and it definitely seems like it's coming. We all are going to go at some point. So it's not like this is completely unexpected, given his severely poor health. But he's not that old, below the average life expectancy of an American man. And this is so sad. For our family, I know my mom has always been very close with him, and he was always very kind to me when I was growing up. He was, my favorite uncle, and we probably don't agree on basically anything, politically or socially or culturally speaking, but I don't know. We had a kinship. He's my kin. I guess it's kinship. But what I'm saying is, like, he was a kind. I shouldn't say in past tense. As of this recording, he's still alive. But he is a kind, generous, gentle person. And I can say that with absolute certainty. He's done the best he possibly can in his life. And so the fact that he might be, about to go is extremely sad. I'm going to try not to start crying or get upset because I cry at everything. I cry during like The Amazing World of Gumball. But um, what I'm saying is, I talked to my aunt about a week ago, and I was actually checking in on my granddad, who's also gone through some sorrows recently, and I wanted to see how he was doing, but he was visiting my aunt in the Midwest. And I talked to her for like an hour and a half. It's definitely the longest we've ever spoken to each other in my entire life. Um, and I realized things were like not good. During that conversation, I mentioned the song Anchored in Love Divine by the Carter Family. And then, I got a call from my mom yesterday where she was, extremely upset and crying because, her friend for the last 50 years um, is kind of potentially entering the last phase. He is in hospice, and he's, from what I understand, not extremely communicative. Um, and my mom, through her tears, through her sobs, um, was asking about this song, and we're like, "What are you? I don't song. What are you talking about?" Like, well, my aunt, not using any names here, um, my aunt had mentioned a song that she wanted to play for him, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I get it now. I remember." Like, I mean, it just came up in our conversation, but we talked for like an hour and a half, um, a week or so ago. And I realized, oh, it's Anchored in Love by the Carter Family. And so, my aunt wanted to play this song for my uncle while he was still aware and conscious and alive. And I was like, oh my God, okay, I'll find it. I'll find the link. You guys don't do Spotify. Okay, like we'll find the YouTube. And I found the lyrics, and I texted the link and the lyrics to my aunt. And this is the point of everything I'm saying up to now. Unlike that birthday card that my great grandmother probably didn't see before she passed, maybe, who knows? Um, my aunt was able to play the song for my uncle in his, hospice bed when he was aware and able to talk and listen. I didn't think it would get there in time. So, he was very, from what I understand, very moved by it. I don't think my aunt and uncle are like terribly, especially religious, even really. I mean, they're Christians, but I don't know how like church going or observant they might be. But, it's a Christian family on my mom's side. Uh, my uncle was like, this is an Alex song? Like, why would she be listening to Christian folk gospel songs from the 30s? But um, I digress. It meant so much to me that I'm not able to be there. I might be leaving in the next day or two to drive either to where they are or to West Virginia, where he will probably end up. I don't know yet. I'm not there. I can't be there. My aunt is shouldering all this by herself. Um, but it meant so much to me that I could get that message to him before it's over. I found a sweet haven of sunshine at last, and Jesus abiding above. His dear arms round me are lovingly cast, and sweetly he tells his love. The tempest is over, I'm safe evermore. What gladness, what rapture is mine. The danger is past, I'm anchored at last. I'm anchored in love divine. And that's what I would want to hear if I was on my way out. That the tempest is over. and you're safe, and you're anchored in something powerful and meaningful and loving. That's what I wanted him to know. I hope I'll get to speak to him again. I think that's probably not going to happen, but anyway, I love you, my dear uncle, and my aunt, my family, who are going to be, grappling with some pretty hard stuff. But I hope everybody feels anchored in love divine. Would that it were a world where everybody felt that way. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Thank you for tuning into Radio Free Gastonia. I'm sorry I ramble and I didn't outline this or map it out much, but I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to say. So please, if you do watch this, and as my favorite US President, George W. Bush, would say, if you're prayerful, pray for us if you're prayerful. Just pray for them. They need all the support they can get if you're so inclined. So, all right. Bye, everybody. Take care.